When this started, I confess I did not understand. I guess maybe that's how it all turned out to be. Well, such a mess.
If you're new here, welcome. I'm Betsy Burris, a teacher, educator, and psycho coach. Every week, I podcast or write on Substack about using your emotions to feel better and teach better. Sometimes you'll hear stories of educators as told to me or sent into the Teaching Through Emotions hotline, all of them discussed with me and my co-host, Joe Johnson. And sometimes you'll hear an interview with someone who offers an interesting perspective on teaching and learning. We unpack it all here on the feed and on Substack. I'm so glad you're here. I am delighted to be having a conversation today with Felicia Keller Boyle, a therapist, a business coach who specializes in working with therapists, a podcaster of 2 podcasts, The Bad Therapist Show, which is a great title, very intriguing, and What Your Therapist Thinks, which is another great title, even more intriguing because, who doesn't want to know what their therapist is really
Apparently,
thinking?
people are always wondering what is going
Right?
on, what's really
Because we're
going
sitting
on
there
in
so
our minds.
quietly looking like we know it all. And they're like, there's something going on in that head. So it's a great title. I love The Bad Therapist Show because it is short and sweet and easy to fit into a quick workout, which is when I tend to listen to podcasts. It's when I'm working out. The advice is easy to digest. It's important for business idiot like me. I don't get business. I don't like business. And so it's really helpful to hear some easy to digest ideas from you.
I definitely used to be in that mode too. So I get it.
It's amazing that you've gotten to where you've gotten. And What Your Therapist Thinks is a new podcast. It's already a blockbuster. It grabs posts from Reddit forums on mental health and relationship topics and brings on a guest to talk about those topics with you and your co-host. It's relaxed and funny and super informative. There's a lot Felicia and I could talk about as we have a lot in common. We're both therapists, we're both podcasters, we're both entrepreneurs, and we both know 2 people in common, our producer/marketing team, Julian Andrukaya and Andrea Koskai, who are 2 lovely people, and they're the ones who brought us together. So thank you, Julian and Andrea. For my listeners who are used to hearing about teachers and teaching, today's conversation is not going to be about teachers and teaching. It's going to stray from that topic. We're going to be talking about podcasting and taking the risk of getting our stuff out there, getting the stuff that we know, which is therapy and coaching and I guess I can say healing, out there to people. And so I'm really, really excited to hear what you have to say, Felicia, about your experiences of bringing your therapy expertise to this medium, which goes out into the world without any guarantee that anyone's going to be listening, and what that's like for you, how you got there. So that's that. I thank you for joining me, and I'm really glad to meet you.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm really happy to meet you too. I'm grateful to the Podvision people for bringing us together.
Right. So we're going to start with a bell ringer. What is one memory from your early days of schooling when a strong emotion influenced you in some way towards where you ended up today?
Yeah, so a funny part of me becoming a therapist is that I actually decided when I was 13 years old that I was going to do it. And I
Wow.
remember exactly what was happening, and I remember exactly who I was speaking to, and I know what we were talking about. It was right after the bell had rung. I was in junior high. We were just finishing up our recess, lunch break, going into our next period. I remember my friend Rose and I were standing outside of our science class, outside of the bungalow. And she was talking about some drama that was happening with another one of our mutual friends. And they were always just kind of like frenemies. They were like best friends, but were always getting into spats. And it was just like so dramatic, so 13. And I remember just standing there and listening to her and being really, really curious about what was going on and trying not to like cast judgment or take sides, but just try to understand her, try to understand our other friend. And as a result, I was often the friend that my friends came to. When they needed somebody to just like talk through these things with, they would come to me. And so I do remember standing there talking to Rose and thinking, there are people who basically have this as a job.
Yeah.
I think I want to do that. And that's exactly what happened. Like I went into my undergrad, I studied psychology, I worked in the field, and then I went to grad school and got my master's degree. So I made that decision at age 13 and I followed it.
wow, I wonder how many people have done that. I can say that in retrospect, there were signs that I too was interested in how people worked and was really working hard to figure that out. But it never occurred to me. I don't think I knew that there was such a thing as therapy back when I was young, which is much, much earlier than when you were young. But I love that.
Yeah. I was trying to figure that too, to be honest, because I had never been in therapy before, but I think maybe like my little sister had been in therapy a little bit. And so I think somehow I knew that this field existed, but I didn't know that much about it. But I just was like, I know there's a thing out there that people do where they just get to talk to people and like they get to help them with their problems. And that sounds like something I could do. So yeah, I'll just do that. And I love to just like pick a lane. I don't like to be wishy-washy. I like to pick something and then just focus on doing it. And so I'm not surprised that at 13, I was like, well, this is just what I'll do with the rest of my life, because that's easier than trying to ask the question again and again and again. I can just decide now and go with it.
Wow. It's amazing that you not only focused and got it done, but actually enjoy it. But you've actually expanded that lane, right?
I have.
So can you talk about that? First, I wanted to ask you, can you distinguish between a bad therapist and a good therapist from your perspective?
Absolutely. So when I say bad therapist, it's a bit tongue-in-cheek because I am absolutely not talking about promoting being a bad therapist in that someone would be cavalier about their job or they wouldn't actually do good clinical work. I'm talking about what I call good therapist conditioning. So this is the pressure that therapists feel to put themselves last, to always put people first, to think that it's impossible, to hold the belief that it's impossible to be both an actual good therapist, a good clinician, caring, do good work, and to make good money. There are so many different moments in our lives and in our careers where we're basically given the message that if you actually really cared, if you were a really good person, if you were a truly good therapist, you would not care about money, which of course is
bullshit.
Yeah, it's total bullshit. And maybe in some vacuum or some like alternate reality, that would be okay. But unless you're literally going to live off the grid and make all your own clothes or whatever, like be completely outside of this economic structure, maybe, but like that's not how it works. And I think it just took me such a long time to really make peace with that because I was absolutely a goody-goody therapist. Like I used to say things like being a therapist is low paying for a reason because it keeps the wrong people out of the field. And by wrong people, I meant anybody who actually wanted to make a decent living.
Wow.
So it really was a years-long process for me to get to the point where I was like, wait a minute. In my mind, I had this perspective of, well, if I'm not earning much money, then I'm one of the good ones. You know, I'm like with the people, like I'm helping. And then as time went on, I was like, am I really helping though? Like, is me being broke actually meaningfully helping someone else's life? And I was like, that's not how that works. That's not how that works. And so I was like, okay, is there a way for me to live according to my values, feel really good about my work, and make good money? What would that actually look like for me? And I decided, well, I don't really know what that looks like yet, but I'm gonna see if I can do it.
Yeah,
you know, let me just try. Because what I've been doing since age 13, since I made this decision, isn't working for me in a particular way.
Very important. Also very, have to say, female. Asking for what you're worth, demanding to be paid what you're worth can be very traditionally female.
Right. This expectation that, well, you're just listening to people. I mean, and like these people need help. So, I mean, you're really going to charge that much? I mean, you're just sitting there and listening to people talk. So there's this weird like double bind of like what you're doing is so valuable and people really need it, but all you're really doing is just talking to them. So it doesn't really matter. It can't possibly be that valuable. And also it's traditionally women's work.
Exactly.
Right. Which we tend to just take for granted and expect to be free or of little or no cost.
Because it's so natural. Caring comes naturally to us. No, and this isn't just caring. This is actually theorized interactions that are healing with people who need things, but first and foremost need good boundaries. And paying for a service is one form of boundary, which I think is a really important one for people to recognize. Well, so here's a question. Does your definition of bad therapist and good therapist apply to podcasters? Intrinsic in this question is kind of like, are you monetizing your podcast?
So yes, I would love to monetize the Bad Therapist Show. And by that, I assume you probably mean like with sponsorships. Right now, I don't have sponsors with the Bad Therapist Show, but I would 100% be open to getting them. When I started the Bad Therapist Show, I was very clear that I was doing it for my business. Like, it was not just something I was doing for fun. I was doing it so that I could market my business, so that I could get more clients. And I don't feel any sort of shyness about that. I'm very comfortable being a business owner now. Like, there are people and friends in my life who I have mentored out of my care for them because we have that kind of relationship. But I also have a business, and then I have my clients in that business. And I don't feel any sort of like discomfort around the fact that I charge for my services or that I market my business because it is a business, right? And again, there's just such an expectation that folks have culturally to get certain things for free or very low cost, to get consultation, to get therapy, to get whatever the case may be for free because, I mean, for a number of reasons, but sometimes it's because, well, like, you learned that from somewhere. Like, you probably just read it. So can't you just tell it to me? Like, why would you charge me for that? So I don't feel any concerns at this point about being able to charge for my services. But in many ways, the Bad Therapist Show is already monetized because it does serve as a marketing platform for my business. And especially this year, so many people have cited the Bad Therapist Show as being how they found out about me or how they started to feel connected to me, how they knew I was the right coach for them. So even though I don't have sponsorships for my podcast right now, I'm absolutely making money off of my podcast.
Yes. Yeah, nice.
And so I think that's a really important thing. Whereas with What Your Therapist Thinks, we actually are just getting our first sponsor for season 2. And like the way that those two podcasts have grown are just like completely different. They're completely different shows, completely different audiences, totally different formats, totally different purposes, and also different marketing strategies. They're basically night and day from each other. It's been really cool to create two very different shows. But for What Your Therapist Thinks, because it grew so quickly, we have been able to monetize it very quickly. And that's also important because our production costs for What Your Therapist Thinks are much, much higher than the production costs for the Bad Therapist Show. And that's fine. What Your Therapist Thinks is also associated with a business called besttherapist.com, which is a therapist directory. And so that podcast also has a job to do beyond just like providing information to the general public that would be useful, engaging, entertaining, fun to listen to. Another one of its purposes is to create brand recognition for besttherapist.com. Another purpose is to give therapists in the Best Therapist community a bigger platform to share about their work. So each of my podcasts do different jobs. And so the way that they're monetized is also different.
Besttherapist.com is a company that was created by your co-host.
That's right.
On What Your Therapist Thinks. And what you're saying is that you draw from therapists in that network to come on your show and talk. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, not exclusively. So this next season, we have some really exciting guests who are very established and like are not using our platform because that's not how they're getting clients these days. But it's a mix of people. It's folks that we're following online sometimes that we're like, oh my God, it would be so cool if we could talk with them. Like, let's shoot our shot and see if they'll say yes to speaking with us. Sometimes it's people who have almost no platform, and getting on What Your Therapist Thinks is going to be a huge amount of exposure for them. So it's a really beautiful way for us to essentially like give back to that community of therapists on besttherapist.com. And it's a way for us to get to meet really cool therapists and practitioners that are already out there with much bigger platforms. And of course, just to give the general public a really great show to listen to where we bring actual licensed professionals onto the show to talk about mental health topics. And we really saw that there was a gap in podcasts. Like, there are so many mental health shows, but there aren't nearly as many mental health shows where actual professional experts are discussing this. Because anybody, of course, can talk about mental health. But we really wanted to make sure we were bringing on vetted, licensed professionals to have these discussions. Even though we're going to have them in casual, fun, engaging ways, we wanted to bring a level of expertise to these conversations that we felt that there was space for in the podcasting world.
Yeah. Tell us about the meteoric rise of What Your Therapist Thinks.
It's been so crazy. I feel like I have to tell you a little bit about my co-host and collaborator, Christy Plantinga. So she is my first internet friend. We met on the internet on Instagram, I think in maybe late 2020, probably more like early 2021. And she is an SEO expert and has created her own marketing agency for therapists. And so we both serve the same population. I'm a business coach and she is a marketing expert.
Wow.
And now has like a very, very robust marketing agency that does SEO for therapists, builds websites, does PR, does all of these incredible things. And she is just one of the coolest people I know. She is so funny. She's so smart. She's so quick and savvy. Like, I just really enjoy her. So we really hit it off. We connected on some personal things really early on. And then over the years, we've actually hired each other for different things. Like I was her business coach for a while. I hired her firm to do SEO for my website. Like she came on this retreat that I led in Thailand. Like we're actually just also friends. And so after she got Best Therapist off the ground, and even before that, she had wanted to start a podcast and she knew she didn't want to do it alone. I already had a podcast. We knew we got along. We love talking with each other. You know, we've already collaborated in so many different ways. So we started kicking around ideas for what this podcast would be about. And it was really important to us, one, that we brought, again, those licensed experts to speak about these mental health topics. Like we really wanted our show to do that. We really wanted it to be fun and funny because we like to laugh a lot. So we didn't want it to be this like somber, heavy show. Even if we were going to be talking about really serious topics, we wanted to create an environment where like levity would be allowed. But we also wanted to be like sensitive and respectful in the moments where like we needed to bring that to the conversation. So we knew we wanted something that had some range. And we knew we wanted to talk about topics that people wanted to hear about. And what's really cool about Christy being an SEO expert is she knows how to find what people are actually searching for.
Yeah. Can't wait. Before you go on, what is SEO? Just so for our listeners.
SEO stands for search engine optimization. So there are a lot of different aspects to SEO, but probably the oldest form of SEO would be creating content on your website that is optimized to rank for certain search terms. So when somebody types a question into Google, a term into Google, we are wanting content on your website that is going to rank for that search term so that when someone is looking for that, your content pops up and your content accurate, like addresses the question they were actually trying to ask and gives them the information they needed. So this is publicly available information. Like there are tools that you can use to see like what are people actually searching for. And so oftentimes we would actually look to see what are people actually searching for because that tells us like what do people want to hear? What are they already curious about, right? And then let's create shows around that. So that has certainly been part of the success is because we intentionally chose topics that we knew people were already interested in. The other thing we did that really helped it succeed is we spent some time dialing it in with a consultant named Jeremy Enns. I think he's just super smart. He was so helpful. So Christy and I consulted with him a couple of times, and he's also who referred us to Podvision. Because we were like, what about your editors? Do you have it? He's like, no, I don't do that. Go talk to these people.
Wow.
I'm so grateful for that. So yeah, we spoke with Jeremy. He really helped us think about what is our show format? What beats are we going to hit consistently? What is the tone? Christy and I also thought a lot about the name of the show. We kicked around a bunch of different ideas. We even did several test episodes where we came up with several show concepts and then asked our therapist friends to come on and do a test episode of that. And in fact, the episode with Ariana and the episode with Haley are test episodes that we decided to air anyway because we liked our conversations with them so much.
Nice.
So we put a lot of like legwork into it at the beginning to really dial in this show because we knew, unlike the Bad Therapist show, which came into my business at a different point, it was really a show that was intended for my existing audience and then to sort of like gently grow my current audience. Whereas What Your Therapist Thinks was meant to get in front of a huge audience. And again, Christy, she likes to move fast. She's really, really savvy. So we didn't want to mess around. We wanted to do this right. And what was also different about this show versus my solo show is like we're collaborators. We're in it together. Like we didn't have to do any of these things by ourselves. We had each other.
Yeah.
And it's not always been that we do literally every piece together. Like Christy had her baby in the middle of our recording season 1. Like he came a little bit early. So she's a new mom. She's got her first child right now. Like my business has really exploded this year. So I'm managing so much more in my business. So it's not like we have literally done each thing equally together. There have been times where she's really stepped up and times where I've really stepped up, but we're never alone. Like we have each other's backs. When we get mean comments on the internet about where people just say they hate the sounds of our voices, which is kind of another way to just say you don't like listening to women talk, but cool.
Oh my God.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing
share
about
that, please. We really want to hear from you about whether or not you like the sound of my voice. My God.
But that's the thing
Get a
about
life.
getting that much exposure is like you get those kinds of comments. And I've been running the Bad Therapist show now for, in April, it'll be 3 years, I think. And I've never gotten a public comment about the sound of my voice. And I think that's because the people who listen to it, well, one, it's just not nearly as many. And then two, they're really there for a different reason, right? Now, granted, if the Bad Therapist show blew up like What Your Therapist Thinks, I'm sure that I would start to get comments like that. Wow. But that's part of the trade-off of this kind of visibility is you get those sorts of comments. And some of the comments have been helpful. Like one of the criticisms we got was that there were a lot of hms and ahs, like a lot of those sounds in our episodes. So we were like, that's actually a good editorial note. We should edit those out and we should also do a better job of muting ourselves and making less sound, because even though that makes sense in a conversation in real life, on a podcast, that's actually not a great listening experience, right? So there are some comments that were like, okay, we don't love how you gave us that information, but like that is still really valuable. So we are going to take that into account. But like, I hate the sounds of their voices. Like, sorry. Like, not going to be changing my voice anytime soon.
Go listen to another podcast, asshole.
Right, exactly. But to come back to the question of like, how did it grow so quickly? One of the other pieces was hiring Podvision and specifically to do buzz building. So Andrea was just fantastic at pitching us to Apple Podcasts.
Yeah.
Julian made incredible artwork for our podcast.
Yes,
like,
I love
really,
your
oh my
logo.
God. We love it so much. We're so happy with our artwork.
It's really great.
I think with really dialing in our show concept, making sure we were bringing something new to the podcasting world that didn't already exist. We were so clear on that. We had beautiful artwork and we pitched ourselves to Apple, and Apple featured us maybe like at least 3, maybe 4 times. We actually hit #1 in the mental health podcast category. It's a ranking that's constantly changing, so I don't think we're there today. But we spent a week at #1 in mental health, and we beat out all of these podcasts that are way older, that are all hosted by men. Every single one of like the top 5 podcasts were hosted by men, and we beat them all out. Christy and I did not expect that kind of growth at all. It was really, really surprising.
Do you find yourself overwhelmed by the reams of advice about how to live your life that you scroll through every day? Well, me too. I'm Stephanie van Bismarck. On my podcast, How Do We Manage, we tackle life's challenges with expert guests who bust myths around everything from AI to hormonal health and online dating to child protection, all with some great practical tips to help us find balance. How Do We Manage is out every Tuesday. Why not make it part of your week? Get it wherever you're listening to this.
Hey, listeners. We are halfway through season 3 of Teaching Through Emotions. Wow! This season brought so many important conversations to the feed, and I can't wait for you to hear what's coming up. To make this show as helpful and as relevant as possible for you, I have a favor to ask, and also a thank you gift. I will be running a listener survey from now, January 22nd, through February 14th, aka Valentine's Day. I want to hear from you. What do you like about the show and the Substack? What can we improve? Are there topics we haven't covered or episodes that stayed with you? Find the link in the show notes or in my latest Substack post and let me know your thoughts. The survey will take you less than 5 minutes and will ultimately make this show better for you. You'll hear your name shouted out on the podcast, and equally as exciting, you'll be automatically entered into a giveaway to win one of the TTE Stay in Your Effin' Garden t-shirts. They are absolutely gorgeous, designed by the podcast producer, Julian Andrikaya. You can check the t-shirts out and the mugs with the same beautiful design on teachingthroughemotions.com. Click on My Store. I can't wait to hear your thoughts in the survey. Thanks so much in advance for answering the questions. Now, back to the episode. So I want to get into fears and insecurities because that's real and that's interesting to me. But success can also come with a dark side too. How are you dealing with the success of what your therapist thinks?
Yeah. Well, one of the really funny things about this is people automatically assume that you're just making money. You know, I told several people, I'm so excited. We got featured by Apple Podcast again. Oh my gosh, this month we already have like 100,000 downloads and like it's the 10th or I don't know, like it's like whatever, something like that. And people are like, oh my God, you must just have money now. And I'm like, that's not like an automatic thing that occurs. Like Christy and I haven't made a dime from the podcast yet.
Yeah.
All we've been doing is spending money to produce it. And again, because of our production quality, costs are like pretty high. We chose to do a video podcast as opposed to an audio only. We didn't just want editing to like clean things up and make it nice. We also wanted content editing. We wanted someone who would listen and make the show actually better in the editing process. So yeah, like our production is really an investment. And we justified that again because we knew this was part of a bigger vision to increase the brand recognition for besttherapists.com. So we really saw it as serving a larger purpose. This wasn't just so we could have a podcast, but that was also a thing. Christy did have this desire to have a podcast. Like that was like something she wanted to do in her life, you know, it's something, you know, a box that she wanted to check. And being her, she wanted to do a really excellent job at it. And that is what set us up to get so much visibility so quickly. But yeah, dealing with the success so far, we've pitched ourselves to bigger guests for season 2. You know, there are a couple of people that we pitched ourselves to last season. They said, sorry, they're all booked. They can't do it, which is, I mean, I do that all the time. Like, it's totally fine. I do not take it personally. You are out there running your business. You are a busy person. I completely understand. But what's been really cool is now we can go to people and say, hey, our podcast ranked #1 in mental health. Our 3rd month of airing the show, I believe we had like, maybe it was like 160,000 downloads that month. Like, it's just, yeah, we have an episode that I think right now has over 50,000 downloads. We started this podcast in September.
Oh my God.
We can go to guests now that are bigger and say like, hey, we can actually contribute. Like, you're not just like doing us a favor. It's like you can get meaningful exposure on our podcast. Like, this is a well-known at this point, amazing podcast. So that's been a really cool thing about the success. A funny thing that happened that I really was not expecting is I went to Florida this past November for the first time, and I was hanging out with my partner and his family members who I never met before. And we were just like talking. I was sharing about myself. I mentioned the podcast. I was like, yeah, I've got this new podcast. And we were like featured on some list on Apple at that particular week. And so I was like, yeah, here it is. And I turned my phone around and she was like, wait, that's your show? What your therapist thinks is your show? Oh my God, I love your show. I was just listening to this episode and hey, she like turns to her brother. She's like, da, 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 da. This is my partner's aunt who I never met before on the other side of the country. And I'm just like, that's when it really hit me. I'm like, this is way bigger than I realized. Because before it was numbers on a screen. I was like, okay, there are this many downloads. And then I'm like, this woman I've never met before who is the aunt of my partner is a big fan of my show. That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's fucking crazy.
So what about downsides? Is there any downside to success?
Yeah, well, the criticisms, you know, like it's Christy and I are people.
Yeah.
One of our first reviews on Apple Podcasts was by a person who you have to give yourself a name when you put a review on Apple Podcasts. And their name was Retired Therapist. And they basically dragged us through the mud. They were like, these are not serious therapists. They're not providing value. They say in their show notes that they're doing this for entertainment purposes. So like clearly they're not serious. And I'm like, well, that's a legal disclaimer because we have to do it. But also, yes, we are not acting as an individual's therapist in these moments. And we do actually want it to be engaging and fun, even though we are talking about serious topics. So that hurt. That was frustrating. But that's the reality of being in a public space is like anybody can say anything they want. And I think for me, I'm just like, it's worth it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying like universe, spirits, I'm not saying I want more of that. I'm not inviting that in. I actually don't want that. I would prefer it if it didn't happen, but I also am not going to let that stop me.
Yeah.
If a bunch of guys on the internet want to say that they hate my voice and can't bear to listen to the podcast, whatever, dude. Like, that seems like a you problem, you know?
Yeah, it does. That does seem like a you problem. Well, you also have a partner. You have someone you can work through this with.
Yeah, and there have been different things that have been hard for us. Like, Christy really took the part really hard, like the criticism about the in the show, because there was like maybe some indication that they might have been more directed at her than me. So like that really didn't feel good. And that was, again, something we decided to address in our editing and then in our just how we're recording episodes going forward, or being a lot more careful about that. The voices thing does annoy me when people comment on that. But again, what do you want from me? The other things that do hurt is when people tear us down clinically. Like, I take being a therapist really seriously. Obviously, it's something that I wanted to be from a very young age. It's something I've put a lot of work into. It's something that I still care about. And the reality, again, of being in a space like this, being online, is that it's so easy to depersonalize someone.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
That's
when
right.
you're listening to them on a show, it's really easy to forget that they're a person. And I do think it's important for us to have ways to criticize public figures. And at this point, I suppose I am, right? Which is that's a weird thing to become.
Exactly.
But at this point, I suppose I am. And I think it is important for us to be able to criticize and critique public figures. That's a part of public discourse, and it's super important, you know? We need to be able to critique politicians and say things openly about them without retribution, right? So
Right.
on a more general level, like, I really, really value this, and I think it's important. Does it hurt personally when people say unkind things and like question my clinical skill or have, those kinds of criticisms? Yeah, of course I don't like it, but I recognize that as part of the trade-off of having this kind of visibility now.
And as a therapist, of course, so you understand, I call it objectification. You're an object. You've been turned into an object. It's so
Totally.
easy because you presented yourself as a voice that's spouting content, and people can do whatever they want with that.
Right.
But as a therapist, you're in a great position to understand. It seems to me that there are ways of criticizing, there are ways of giving feedback that can be crafted so that they land. If someone really wants their feedback to land and make a difference for somebody else, then there are ways
Right.
of saying it that will actually make it more digestible and actually helpful. If someone is sending whatever words they're writing on your review with barbs, poisoned barbs, then that's a them problem too, honestly.
Right. You make such a great point, Betsy. I'm glad you said that, because we have actually got some comments that were like, hey, I really love the content, but the are really hard to listen to. And like, I think that was really coming from a genuine place of like, I actually want to give you this feedback because I think it will be helpful, versus some that are like,
Exactly.
I can only listen to this for 8 minutes because their voices were so annoying. And I'm like, yeah, there's a real difference there. And so, yeah, I think the reality is we, as the hosts of the show, have to comb through what are the pieces of this feedback that we are going to take to heart, and maybe not even take to heart. Like, some of it is take to heart because there is potential in this podcast that we're going to say things that we're like, ooh, maybe we shouldn't say that. And we do have an amends to make. We do have a sorry to give. Like, that is 100% possible. That could very well happen. And there have been things that we've said in recording that, like, we reflect back later and we're like, oh, wait, let's not include that because that's not the energy we want to put out in the world. That's not how we actually want to talk about this topic. Like, one-to-one with our buddies, like, sure, that might make sense. But that's also a completely different context than like a podcast where like hundreds of thousands of people are listening, right? So we have to be really careful with our words.
Yeah.
But we're also still human. We're not perfect. So there's a possibility that we will have to say sorry at some point. So it's weeding through what are those things that we do really need to acknowledge, make amends for, change. What are just some great like editorial notes that where you can just like, oh, that's not personal. We just need to say less. Like that's like literally not a big deal. And then what are the comments that are, it's just trolling and we're like moving on.
Yeah, and you can tell. I mean, the way it lands in your body is probably a really good tell. That doesn't make it easier to be trolled. It doesn't make it easier for someone out in the world to think they have a right to take you down because of, I would call that envy, for their own envy or for their own purposes, wanting to raise themselves up.
Or just to like get attention, right? It's just like maybe they're feeling frustrated that day. Maybe this is how they take out their aggression. They take out their frustration. Like, I have a hard time imagining doing something like that. And like, whenever things like this happen to me, I'm always so afraid. I'm like, wait, have I ever done something like that? And so when this happens, I'm like, okay, note to self, Felicia, like, be kind. Like, for instance, I was at a public event recently and people were performing and I thought somebody like was not a particularly good performer. And I like said to my partner something to that effect in a kind of jokey way. And then I caught myself and I was like, you know what? I'm not posting this on the internet and I'm not saying that directly to this person, but I am making a joke, like sort of a joke at this person's expense. And I know what it's like when someone does that. And this person is out there doing their very best. And I'm not doing it. I'm not out there doing what they're doing. I don't actually know how hard that is.
Yeah.
I don't know what they had to do to get themselves to this point. So it just made me reflect a little bit on, even how I criticize or my own judgments that I voice. And I'm not perfect, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think this is something we're always changing. So I make mistakes around this, but it's interesting to see how it's made me look at some things in my own life a little bit differently.
Oh, absolutely. We all objectify. We all turn people around us into objects. I do it whenever I get into my car. So,
oh my God, yeah,
right,
I'm so paranoid about people I know seeing me driving.
If I'm behind you, I'll give you hell. But I too have to stop and be like, stop. Look, it's probably a little old lady, or it might be someone you know.
Yeah.
And if it's a little old lady or someone you know, your feelings will change instantly. Objectifying other people is so satisfying because it gives us a channel for all the shit that's, circulating around our bodies at that particular moment.
It's such an easy thing to do, right? It's so easy to just take it out on somebody that you...
And there are no real consequences. Except the way you did it with your partner, just kind of by this, or the way I do it in my car when no one can hear me, except the people in the car with me. But to do it publicly, that's another level that is actually beyond me. But I think it would be, like I said, you and Christy could probably do some little therapy on that person among yourselves and figure out, this person is probably feeling envious or having a bad day or just wishes that they'd come up with this or, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many reasons why somebody might do that. And it could be something that is a pattern, a way that they regularly express their frustration or get to feel that one-up sensation.
Yep, exactly.
But for some people, it really could just be like they just got fired. You know what I mean? Like their partner just broke up with them. They are just feeling really insecure that day. Maybe they really hate Californians. I'm from California and I don't personally think I have that much vocal fry, but according to some of our commenters, I do. It's really, really funny. But it's like maybe someone just is like, they hate Californians for some reason. They want to let the world know about that. I don't know.
Yeah. So that is the downside, is just feeling exposed to people who aren't always kind and who actually can use you now for their own purposes because you are available to them in a way that the Bad Therapist show isn't. I think there was a show that I listened to, a Bad Therapist episode, where you talked about doing things despite being scared. And of course, that interests me. I'm really interested in the negative emotions and how it is that we manage those because they can discourage us and keep us in little boxes. And you do things despite being scared. Can you give an example? Or can you, how do you do that? And how do you sustain that? And what are you scared of now? Is there anything that you're scared of now in your podcasting career?
Nothing's coming to mind with that, but I do think I've gotten really good at doing things that scare me. Really, really, really good at doing things that scare me. There are some things that scare me that I'm just like, well, that's just dumb to do. I'm not going to do it. Like, I will never jump out of a plane.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe I will.
Bungee jumping.
That's scary and also just something I'm not going to do. But I also have been very afraid of the water and the ocean, not necessarily like a phobic type of response, but the ocean really creeps me out. I'm sure other people can relate. It's really big.
There are things in there you cannot see.
Right. You can't see and then suddenly you can see them because they emerge through the water.
Yes.
And even if you can't see them, they're still out there. It's just really creepy.
I totally agree with you.
You get it? Okay.
I totally get it.
But over the years, I've actually started doing snorkeling and I've been in water that has been much deeper than I would have initially ever gone into. And it's been at times kind of a little frightening. Every once in a while I'll be like, ooh, I feel that.
Yeah.
In Thailand, I've gone snorkeling, jumped out of a boat into open water and snorkeled. And there are moments where it's scary for me and I have to kind of calm myself down.
Yep. But how do you do it? What brings you to do it? How do you overcome it? The fear.
I mean, I think part of it is just doing it and then realizing that I've survived, you don't get rid of the fear before you do it. You do it even though you're afraid. Because, if I was waiting for the fear to go away, I would never do it. So one time, this was really, really salient for me, was when I graduated with my master's degree. I was an associate marriage and family therapist. I was working on getting clients. I was at a group practice, but it was really decentralized. So I could market myself. I could go get my own clients. I could set my own fee. I could set my own cancellation policy. I could really, in many ways, build it like I was building my own private practice. But I also had another job cleaning houses. When I was growing up, my mom cleaned houses. I cleaned a doctor's office when I was in high school to make some money.
Yeah.
So like I grew up cleaning houses, and I had this job cleaning a house here in San Francisco. Wealthy couple, both worked in tech. And I would clean their house. I'd walk their dog. I'd house sit for them when they were out of town on vacation. Like I was just kind of like their go-to person. I really didn't want to clean houses anymore. I really wanted to just be a therapist. I wanted to be a professional. I didn't want to do that work anymore. And I would tell myself, I would set all these benchmarks for myself. Like, well, when I make X amount of dollars more, or when I get this many clients more, and those milestones kept on coming, I'd reach them, and then I'd just move it further. And I recognized at a certain point, and it was like a long time of this happening. It was like many, many times of me just being so frustrated. These people were lovely. The people who hired me, it was nothing against them. I just didn't want to do this type of work anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just like really arduous. I kept on hitting my head on the same spot again and again and again. And finally, I recognized this is never going to not be scary.
The idea of jumping away out of that secure
Leaving
job.
Yeah, letting go of this job and fully trusting my practice to fund my life. I kept on waiting. It wasn't the milestones.
Yeah.
I kept on waiting for the fear to go away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I recognized that no matter what level I reached, the fear was not going to go away. At some point, I would have to let go of this job, even while I felt fear, and I just have to figure it out. And so it was that moment that really changed things for me. That going forward, I was like, oh, I don't have to wait for the fear to go away, because I've watched what happens when I wait for the fear to go away. I will wait forever.
Yeah.
I will just never do the things I want to do because I'm afraid.
It just will adjust. It'll adjust to whatever your situation is.
I'll keep on giving myself these benchmarks, thinking that that's the proof that it's time to go. It's not the proof. Like there's no good time to go after what you really want.
Yep.
There's no right moment. Like there is always risk involved. There was absolutely risk in making that decision, but there was never going to be zero risk.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm really at the point where I am willing to take on a lot of risk. Starting this podcast, being this exposed, creates a lot of risk. And I don't want bad things to happen. I don't want scary things to happen, but they might, and I will have to learn how to move through them.
I just want to share that for me, the risk is less financial, it's less material, but the risk of putting myself out there is really psychological. That I have these deep-seated fears and insecurities that, geez, I bet a lot of people listening to this would be very surprised to hear it, because I don't come across as being insecure or not confident at all. But I have to push every day through fear of being too big, believing in myself, putting myself before others rather than just serving everybody and making sure everybody's okay, believing that I have something to say, that I have a right to say it. These very fundamental existential lessons that I've learned that come with now this kind of expectation that if I do believe in myself, if I push through, something bad's going to happen. Someone's going to be mad at me. I'll lose love. So as a therapist, you know what I'm talking about. These are what I call transferential fears. They're not baked in, but they're very, very structural, that they're really hard for me to root out. There are plenty of fears, the fear of jumping into deep water, I think, unless it's a phobia, you can overcome that by making the move and seeing what happens in a safe way, so that you're not going to put yourself in the jaws of a great white right then. But these fears are irrational. They're more irrational. They're deeply irrational, but they're based in lessons that we learned. So they're actually really justifiable fears that are protecting us from taking risks that could put us back into situations that will threaten us existentially the way they did when we were little and where our existence was threatenable, right? I'm a grown-up now. There's nothing that's going to threaten my existence. I'm good, right? I'm good, unless climate change. But these fears are not going to threaten my existence, yet they are really powerful, and they really affect my day as a creator, as a creative person, taking these risks of speaking, getting my voice out there and insisting, listen to me, I'm worth listening to.
Yeah, I relate so much to what you're saying. I think, at the beginning of starting to build my business online, that was absolutely something that was really loud in my mind when I first started. A lot of fears about being visible, speaking up. And it's interesting hearing you talk about that because I feel like those particular set of fears
Right.
are not something I'm as connected to these days. And again, I think it's because of that exposure. I think it's just because I did it
Mm.
again and again and again and again. But I do absolutely anticipate that there's another level of claiming space and getting
Mhm.
bigger and being visible and saying, hey, listen to me that I haven't gotten to yet. And when the moment comes for me to rise to that occasion, I wouldn't be surprised if those same fears come up again, right? Because
Yeah.
now there's a new situation, now there's a new level. So I'm not, even though those fears don't feel alive for me today,
Mm.
I have seen again and again that like my fears that I think I've kind of dealt with often show back up when I'm moving from one level to the next.
Exactly.
Yeah, what's been helpful is just remembering, oh, right, I already did this. You mentioned like the little one, like this is old, like this goes way, 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 way back. And so, really reminding the little parts of myself is like, no matter what they say about you,
Mm.
like the voice thing, honey, it's not about you, it's about them.
Right. Right.
Like this person didn't like what you said and you're really, really worried you made a mistake. And you know what? You did it. If you make a mistake, we can fix that. But like, that's actually not what happened here. And I know that you're really activated by that. But like, I'm here as the adult self to protect you and take care of you and let you know that,
Yeah.
like, no, you're actually good, honey. We don't actually know what's going on with them, but like, it's definitely not really about you.
Yeah.
Right? Because my little one really, really wants to get it right. She doesn't want to make any mistakes. We don't want anybody to be
Yeah.
mad. We don't want
Mhm.
anybody to be hurt. Like that just makes my little one kind of
Mhm.
like crumble or like rush in to try to fix it. And so like,
Yes.
yeah, I think it's a matter of, yeah, having kind of an internal conversation between the part of us that's getting really activated and is really fearful and is experiencing that existential threat to their well-being, yeah, like to their existence. Like this might
Yes.
destroy me. Like I might
Yeah.
completely collapse under the weight of this pain.
Yeah.
Having a conversation with that part and the part that is wise, connected, and even more than the adult self, I think of it as like,
Yeah.
I'm not an internal family systems therapist, but I think about that modality right now and the capital S self that is referred to. That isn't just like the self of today, but it is the self that is like even beyond this self, but is like, what is the deepest part of me that is connected to safety, to well-being, to wholeness, that can see this really scared part of me and is just like,
Mm.
oh, I've so much compassion for you. Kind of like the Kuan Yin in us. Like Kuan Yin is like, you might be familiar, a
Guan
Buddhist
Yin. I know
goddess,
Guan Yin. Yes. The goddess of compassion.
the goddess of
Yes.
compassion. Exactly. So yeah, connecting with that spirit of compassion that's just like can see this like so much pain and be like unbothered by it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That like
Right.
so compassionate.
I just love that. It's like the therapist speaking to the therapist,
Yeah,
the big
totally.
therapist speaking to the little therapist. And I love the little one. I just think that's
Yeah.
lovely. I just want to say, this is something that I'm going to take away is this notion of embracing my little one with the wisdom that I I share with my clients every day, bringing that compassion along and thinking, as the dude would say, there's nothing fucked here. There's nothing fucked here.
I was just talking about the Big Lebowski yesterday, and I don't talk about him every day, but I was talking about Jeff Bridges and the Big Lebowski literally less than 12 hours ago.
Such a great movie.
Such
We
a good
quote him
movie.
all the time. We
He's
quote him
amazing. The
all the
dude
time. Ins and
abides.
outs
The
and what have
dude
yous.
abides,
The dude
right?
abides.
Like,
Exactly. And I want to channel that. I have to channel that.
yeah.
And you're helping to remind me because it's been, my podcast is nothing like what your therapist thinks. Its level of success is minuscule compared to yours, but it still feels like a risk. And while I love what I talk about, I love my listeners, I love my readers, I'm clear about that. The dangers of what I will say to myself,
That's far worse than what
right?
somebody
Far
could say to
worse.
you.
And it's something that I think is really, really great to say out loud because I know so many people out there, clients, teachers that I work with, people who want so much to be good, to do the right thing, to be perfect, to be the best people they can be for their students, for example, or for their clients, we are the ones, I think, who are most cruel to ourselves. And that is the danger. That is the great danger that I know I've worked on over the years, and really felt like I'd silenced that voice inside myself after a while. But this work of really jumping in to a podcast with Podvision, with a team that I'm paying, is my growth edge. And all those voices, as you say, they're coming back. They're just arising again. And I'm out of practice with, like, how do I help my little one? So thank you. That's what I'm going to take away.
I'm so glad. Yeah, it's like you're at this new level of exposure, of trying something new, of really saying, like, this is serious. I'm not fucking around. I really mean it, so much that I'm going to have a team who I've hired to work with me. And that's another level of investment. It's another level of, like, being really serious about it. And that can be activating.
It is activating. Yeah. Exactly. Well put.
Yeah.
Well, if you could give our listeners, whether they're teachers, students, parents, podcasters, therapists, one single piece of homework for this week to help them better live through emotions. My podcast is called Teach Through Emotions, but better live through their emotions, be better people in collaboration with their emotions. What would that homework assignment be?
Going back to this topic of fear and, like, what are the things you want to do that fear might be stopping you from doing, I'm going to share a practice that I actually learned through a planner that I really like called Daily Greatness. And I got their business planner, my first year of running my private practice. And there was this journaling prompt of writing down everything that I was proud of from the beginning of my life, including things that I was proud of in the moment, but, like, I wouldn't be proud of today. So it might be things like learning to ride a bike, where it's like, I'm not like, oh my God, it was so cool that I learned to ride a bike. But when I was like, I don't know, 5 or whatever, or 4, and I learned to ride a bike, it was like very cool because I remember falling again and again and again. And then suddenly I wasn't falling anymore.
Wow.
Right. And that was a big deal. Or like being able to climb the tree. One of the things I put on that list was like going to roller derby practice when I wasn't even sure if I could still roller skate. I just showed up and was like, oh, I can do this. And it was really, and I didn't know anybody. And at the time I was really, like, quite shy. So all those things were like, I was more proud of that than I was of getting my master's degree, because that wasn't scary or hard at all.
Right.
I could do that easy. But going to roller derby practice with a bunch of strangers doing something that felt edgy, that was actually really scary. So anyway, I wrote down all of the things that I was proud of, and then I circled the ones that had the most oomph for me, and there was a very specific trend. And I don't want to tell you what the trend is. I want you to notice what the trend is for you. Yeah. And there will be a lesson in it for you.
Nice. Okay, so the assignment is go through your life, write down everything you're proud of, and then circle the ones that really hit you, that really have oomph in them, and then look for the pattern. Please write down your pattern, what you discovered, in the comments. I mean, is it going to be something really personal and private, or is it something people can share?
Well, it could be. Some of them could be really personal. Some of them might be like divorcing my husband. You know what I mean? Like, and maybe you want to put that in the comments or maybe you don't. So I would say it's really up to you. But
absolutely,
notice whether you want to share the things that you did, like your list of things that you did that had the oomph behind it, or you want to share like what you noticed the pattern was, like any insights that you would want to share about doing this practice. I would personally love to see them. Betsy,
right?
I'll look in the comments for this episode to see them, because I'm really curious what your listeners will have to say. But yeah, if you are willing and able to share, I would definitely love to see it. And Betsy, it sounds like you definitely want to see it too.
So please do it, listeners. We would appreciate this interaction, involvement. Okay, where can listeners find you, Felicia?
Yeah, well, you can find me on both of my podcasts, What Your Therapist Thinks and The Bad Therapist Show. I am online at The Bad Therapist. So primarily these days, I'm on Instagram. So you can find me there. So there will be a link in the show notes for that. When it comes to my business coaching for therapists, my website is thebadtherapist.coach. And I have all sorts of different ways to connect, including a really incredible private practice fee calculator. So if you happen to be listening to this and you are a private practice therapist or aspiring private practice therapist, that is a really handy tool. The reason why it's called the Magic Sheets is because that's what users named it. Like people started saying, these are magic sheets. And I was like, you know what? That's way more fun than private practice fee calculator. So we're going to go with that one. So yeah, there are plenty of ways to connect. And I really appreciate being able to be a guest on your show, Betsy. Thank you so much for all of these really insightful questions. And yeah, really appreciate it.
I'm so excited for you guys and wish you well. And I'm really glad to have met you and to now know you. So when Julie and Andrea and I talk about you, I'll be like, yeah, I know Felicia.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Betsy.
Thank you so much, and be well, and I will, I'm sure, be in touch as time goes on. But best of luck to you.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
TTE is a Podvision production, created and hosted by me, Betsy Burris, and co-hosted by Joe Johnson. Production and audience development support from Julian Androkaya and Andrea Koskaj. Crucial editing by Brad Wells. And the music, which makes me smile and dance every time I hear it, by Tom Burris of Jabbering Trout. Thanks one and all. If you like this episode, text it to a friend. And if you haven't already, sign up for my Substack, where you can become a paid subscriber and get all kinds of goodies, including exclusive podcast episodes that will change your life. That's teachingthroughemotions.com. Thank you for listening.
It's all true.